Hello and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering EDH deck tech idea. Today we are taking a look at Tannuk, Steadfast 2nd. It is a 4 mana free 5 and other creatures you control have haste. And now we are coming to the interesting part about this card, because artifact cards and red creature cards in your hand have warp free. This means you can cast them for a discounted price of free mana, but you have to exile them at the beginning of the next end step, and then you may cast them on a later turn from exile. To make this a powerful and very impactful commander, I have built my version of the deck around free value by using Cascade or Discover to simply generate a lot of powerful value that we can use to overwhelm our opponents, and also make sure that we are not shields down during our opponent's turns, simply because we have to exile those permanents that we just warped in. But first, aside from a lot of common mana rocks, we play a few of the following cards to accelerate our game plan. For example, Scepter of Eternal Glory, a 4 mana legendary artifact, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. You can also tap it and add 3 mana of any one color, but you can only activate this if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. This will be quite easy for us simply because we are in a mono red deck and play a bunch of mountains. We play Extraplanar Lens, a 3 mana artifact, and when it enters the battlefield you may exile target land you control. Then, whenever a land with the same name as the exiled card is tapped for mana, its controller adds 1 mana of any type that land produced. This is the reason why we play snow-covered lands in this deck, simply because this also counts for our opponent's mountains, and if they are not playing specifically snow-covered mountains, we got them checked out. We play Scampering Surveyor, a 4 mana free 2, and when it enters the battlefield, search a library for a basic land card or a cave card, put it onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. This budget version of Solemn Simulacrum can be warped in due to Tannuk, and it can also be helpful to find a few powerful caves. We play Ruby Medallion, a 2 mana artifact, and red spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Keep in mind that this also discounts the warp cost of our creature cards in our hand, so definitely a staple that we have to play. We play Solemn Simulacrum, a 4 mana 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield you may search a library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. Furthermore, when it dies you may draw a card. And the following card can lead to a very explosive turn. If you have 4 mana available, you can cast Geosearch, a 4 mana sorcery, and you add 7 mana to your mana pool, but you can only spend this mana to cast artifact or creature spells. This is exactly enough to bring Tannuk onto the battlefield and warp something in. Now we are talking about supportive enchantments that will help us to accelerate with our game plan. For example, Blood Moon, a 3 mana enchantment, and non-basic lands are mountains. This is a card that I would always play in a mono red deck, simply to tax our opponents and take a lot of tempo away from them. We play Sunbird's Invocation, a 6 mana enchantment, and whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's mana value. Then you may cast a spell with mana value X or less from among cards revealed this way without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is one of the free value mechanics that I have talked about earlier, and there are a lot more to come. We play Passionate Archaeologist, a 2 mana legendary enchantment background, and commander creatures you own have, whenever you cast a spell from exile, this creature deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. This enchantment will help you to take out the biggest threat for your deck as fast as possible, so it will be a lot easier for you to take out the 2 remaining players. We play Shared Foyer and Warped Space. This enchantment room has 2 sides. Shared Foyer for 4 mana says, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library and you may play it this turn. This room might be a little bit of a numbo in this deck, simply because Tannuk says that only cards in your hand have warp free, and if you exile one of your very expensive cards, they will most likely stay in exile if you don't have enough mana available. But the other side, Warped Space for 6 mana, is even better in this deck, because once each turn you may pay 0 mana rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast from exile. This enchantment will help you to follow up with all of your warped cards and cheat them in for free once each turn. We play Flame Shadow Conjuring, a 4 mana enchantment, and whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 red mana. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature. That token gains haste and exile it at the beginning of the next end step, which means that for 4 mana total you can cheat in 2 powerful creatures, which can lead to game-winning turns. And last but not least, one of my favorite mono-white enchantments, Industrial Advancement, a 4 mana enchantment, and at the beginning of your end step you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that creature's mana value. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. As a lot of our creatures have very high mana value and we will cheat them in due to their warp costs, Industrial Advancement will still see their original mana value, which will allow us to cheat really powerful bombs onto the battlefield. And now let's talk about those powerful creatures. We play Aurora Phoenix, a 6 mana 5/3 with flying and Cascade, and whenever you cast a spell with Cascade, return Aurora Phoenix from your graveyard to your hand. This creature will provide extra free value for us, which is exactly what we want. We warp in Maelstrom Colossus, an 8 mana 7/7 with Cascade. To hit even more free value, we want to warp in Itali Primal Storm, a 6 mana 6/6 with haste due to Tannuk, and when it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana costs. We want to warp in Trumpeting Carnosaur, a 6 mana 7/6 with Trample, and when it enters the battlefield, discover 5. You can also use it as an interactive card because for 3 mana and discarding it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. We want to warp in Myojin of Roaring Blades, an 8 mana 7/4, and it enters the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it if you cast it from your hand. Furthermore, we can remove an indestructible counter from it, so it deals 7 damage to each up to 3 targets. And another card that synergizes great with cards that we've cast from anywhere other than our hand is Flaming Tyrannosaurus, a 7 mana 5/5 with Menace, and whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Flaming Tyrannosaurus deals 3 damage to any target, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Furthermore, when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. We can not only warp creatures into play, we can also warp artifact cards into play. But some of them are also so synergistic that we want to play them normally. So we play Nexus of Becoming, a 6 mana artifact, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, draw a card. Then you may exile an artifact or creature card from your hand. If you do, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's a free golem artifact creature in addition to its other types. This card can single-handedly carry the game for you, simply because it is card advantage on an artifact, and it lets you create powerful golems with powerful effects. We warp in Portal to Phyrexia, a 9 mana artifact, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures, which in most cases will be a board wipe for your opponents. Furthermore, at the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. This effect will come in handy later when we can hardcast it from exile. We play Mirror of Life Trapping, a 4 mana artifact, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if it was cast, exile it. Then return all other permanent cards exiled with Mirror of Life Trapping to the battlefield under their owner's control. This useful artifact will still give you all of the ETB effects of the creatures that you warp in, and then immediately exile them, negating the downside of warp in your end step, and once you warp something else in, you will get the earlier exiled card for free back onto the battlefield with another ETB trigger. For even more free value, we play Ingenuity Engine, a 7 mana artifact with Cascade, and for 1 mana, tapping it and sacrificing an artifact, you can return target artifact you control to its owner's hand. This will allow you at some point to chain this card over and over again, because you can also return itself to its owner's hand, which will come in handy quite nicely. Another card for even more free value and also protection against blue players is Shemiel the Inner Sun, a 7 mana legendary artifact, and spells you control can't be countered. Furthermore, at the beginning of your end step, you discover 5. A really cool card in this deck is Meteoric Maze, a 6 mana artifact equipment, and equipped creature gets +4/+0 and has Trample. It costs 4 to equip, but it has Cascade, which means this card will most likely simply turn into a free Cascade for 5 mana if we warp it in for 3 mana. You want to win more? You get it. We want to cheat in Blightsteel Colossus, a 12 mana 11/11 with Trample, Infect, and Indestructible, and if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal it and shuffle it into its owner's library. This can take out a player immediately simply due to Infect, and if we have Flame Shadow Conjuring on the battlefield, it can take out 2 players. One of the most interesting cards for me personally in this deck is Endless Sands, a land desert which you can tap to add a colorless mana, and the interesting part is you can pay 2 mana, tap it, and exile target creature you control, simply to avoid getting your creatures exiled at the end step due to warp. And for 4 mana, tapping it and sacrificing it, you can return each creature card exiled with Endless Sands to the battlefield under its owner's control, which can also lead to very explosive turns depending on how many creatures you've accumulated under this card. And last but not least, if we are playing a deck that cares about the end step, we play Sundial of the Infinite, a 2 mana artifact, and for 1 mana and tapping it, you end the turn, but you can only activate this ability during your turn. As soon as you have the warp trigger on the stack, you will just activate Sundial of the Infinite to end the turn, which will negate the effect of warp. Alright guys, these were a few cards that I would play in Tannuk, Steadfast second. Let me know which cards you would add to the deck, which legendary creature I shall feature next. Make sure to check out my deck list in the notes below, and then I would say see you in the next one. Goodbye guys!